Okay, I'm really excited about today's episode. We are joined by hilarious Jewish comedian and social media star Zach Margs. Um, Before I introduce Zach properly and we start a conversation, if you're not already familiar with him, although I'm sure many people viewing this are familiar with his content, I just want to show you some of the stuff that Zach does to satirize Israeli and Jewish life at a time when we really could do with a few laughs. Let's have a watch.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, שלום. I am flying pilot for you today on the Elal flight Tel Aviv to London. It might be a little bit bumpy, but don't worry, when I was in the army, I was fighter pilot in special unit. I was flying with the missile gun in the right hand, the schnitzel in the left hand, sipping on arak, fighting terrorists. So, little bit cloud, it's not problem for me. If you're wanting to drink something, you ask my colleague Yael. Yael, little bit not friendly because she recently divorced. So please, only asking her if you really need. The Wi-Fi password, it is the same in all of Tel Aviv. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. בסדר? יופי.
Bari Pri Hagafen.
Amen.
My bar mitzvah. Can you pass the pickles? Can you pass the egg and onion? Can you pass the chopped liver?
Do you really need that?
What, no knedlach? Lovely soup. My mum says better. Is that cooked?
Eat, you're so skinny.
Oh, I've schmutzed. Just a taste. I can't believe this is porridge. Can I take some of it home? What time's lunch tomorrow? Next time you must come to us.
Shalom, אני יוסי. Don't worry, I'm speaking English. יאללה, passport. What brings you to Israel? You liking the food, okay. You liking to eat bizzli or bamba? Bamba, נכון, with the hazelnut. Question for security. Would you rather fight one camel-sized falafel or 100 falafel-sized camels? Okay. You are Jewish, can? You are celebrating the holidays. Rosh Hashanah, okay, very important. When you see the Rebbe on Rosh Hashanah, you were saying Chag Sameach or you were saying Yontef? 1 second, kapara, okay? יום אחי, יאללה בוא, אין נשק אבל יש פצצות. So where you from?
Anyone who's been to Israel, been to, Jewish classic events like a Friday night will know exactly what Zach is referring to, and that's why he's been so incredibly popular. Zach, thanks so much for making time to join me on JTV today. It's really appreciated.
No worries, mate. Thank you for having me.
This is just incredible stuff, and it's given us a lot of laughs at a time where, as I said, we really have needed some laughs. Can you just give our viewers a bit of a background into how this all started? What made you start doing comedy videos? Was this something that was planned? Was it accidental? How did you get into all this?
So it really started during lockdown, where I did just generic comedy videos on TikTok, a bit like a lot of people, because we had nothing else to do. I've always been a big fan of comedy. I was previously trying to get into, I wrote a couple of TV series pilots, produced one, didn't really, it wasn't very successful, but TikTok was quite successful. I seem to be quite good at the short form content, making light of things and making humorous content, but it's generally around COVID. And a few like odd funny skits, like nothing, it wasn't very consistent. It was just random. So I never felt like that passionate about it. And I did throw in one Israeli one. It was in August 2022. I did the first LL security one, and it went really viral on TikTok, but it was random. Like I never did anything like that before, and I didn't plan to do anything like that after, at least for a year, because then, after lockdown, I went in back to work in property, and I'm a surveyor, so I was doing sort of real life. And then August 2023, I'm on the beach in Israel with my friends in Tel Aviv. Had a particularly rude and obnoxious waiter that was sort of taking the food away before we'd finish. If you asked to change something on the menu, we'd just say no. Terrible service. But he kind of looked a little bit like me. He was wearing a white t-shirt. I had a white t-shirt, black shorts. And then I bought one of those bucket hats that they sell at the kiosk, and he was wearing one. So I put it on and just started impersonating him to my friends. And everyone was laughing. And then my friend Emma was like, we need to film this. It's really funny. So we decided to film it. And we filmed for like 30 minutes, just different shots of me doing stuff as the waiter. Eventually got kicked out of the restaurant because the manager said people thought I was a waiter. and I was, just saying stupid things, like ignoring people, and I was looking bad for them. Anyway, I edited this video based on all the skills I learned on TikTok, and I made my Instagram non-private. I had a private account with like 1,000 followers. I made it unprivate just to post this one video, and it blew up. It was called POV You Eat Lunch on the Beach in Tel Aviv, and both on TikTok and on Instagram, it got like 1 million views on both overnight, and I was so shocked. And people were coming up to me on the beach and being like, "Oh my god, you're the waiter," and it was like very funny. And then when I came home, I was, I was interrogated by Allow security, as we always are,
Yeah.
and it reminded me of the video I'd posted a year ago, pretending to be Allow security, and I thought I could make it better. And that's the one you just played, is the second one I did, and that also went really viral. And then I thought, what else could I be? Maybe I could be the pilot. And then I was the pilot, and I think I'd done those ones and had a little bit of a following, probably like 9,000 followers on Instagram. And then October 7th happens, and suddenly my world was, like many other Jews, was just flipped upside down. Seeing the anti-Semitism here in London, the protests, obviously the news of what happened and the hostages, and all eyes were on Israel. And I just felt like this was my moment to maybe offer something else, a different perspective on Israel, a different lens, and try and influence people to find some sort of light and humor around being Jewish and being Israeli, or loving Israel that isn't just doom and gloom and terror. So that's why I decided to go all in at that point. And since then, it's been nonstop, just trying to bring light and humor and joy to people that support Jewish people or Israel.
Wow. So pre the war, you were kind of doing it was more hobby like, and then after you kind of went all in.
Yeah. So pre-war, I'd done the waiter, I'd done a couple of Allow securities. I'm not sure I'd even done the pilot yet. I think I'd done that Shabbat dinner video that you posted, and may have done a Yom Kippur video, because I think that was just before October 7th, 2023. And so I had probably like 4 or 5 Jewish Israeli videos. Then October 7th happens. And, I was posting about it, like I'm sure a lot of people, or maybe even yourself, were posting on Instagram, on my stories, like showing what happened, trying to explain and give insight to what was really going on. And I was talking about it so much. And I had a break off work during December, because during Christmas, obviously in the UK, everything's closed. And I just decided to book flights to Israel. And my mum was like, "What are you doing? Why would you go there?" Because this is, it's December 2023. It's just after this war started. And I said, "You know what? I'm talking about Israel so much on my Instagram. I really feel like I need to put my money where my mouth is and go and be there." And my family were totally against it. And then more so when I confirmed that I was going, a friend of mine reached out and said she was going to the south to see Kfar Aza and Nir Oz and the Nova site, which are obviously 2 of the most affected kibbutzim from October 7th. And she said, "There's one space on the bus. It's with an organization called Diplomat. Would you like to come?" And that was the moment where even I was like, "Oof, I don't know, like going right close to the border and where everything happened only 2 months ago. I'm not sure." But I decided to do it. Obviously, we had tons of safety protocols in place, but that was the moment for me. Like going to the south, going into the homes of people, seeing the damage, like the blood still there. It was so raw. And I was just, at that moment decided that this was like a purpose for me. And I went all in after that.
That's amazing. That is really inspiring, actually, to see like you combine like your talent and skill with something so meaningful. It's a bit of a gift, actually, to be able to have that in life. So that's really special. And I think a lot of the content you're doing like really resonates with people, resonates with Jewish and Israelis' experience. It's almost a bit cathartic. That one you did about the being interrogated when you get to the airport. I have to tell you, I had such a funny experience. Where I went with a delegation of like members of parliament and members of the House of Lords with my dad. He was involved in this Friends of Israel delegation, whatever. So I just thought I'd join. It was a few years ago. And there was this non-Jewish female member of the House of Lords, which is like the upper chamber, in just for our viewers, of the British Parliament, and she was being. I could hear her interrogation with the young Israeli security guy at check-in. And he took her passport and he said, because it says on the passport, Baroness, this or that, that's her title. So I could hear the conversation, and he said, it says Baroness, what this means? And she said, oh, it means I'm a female, I'm a British politician, I have a seat in the upper chamber of the British Parliament. It's sort of like a official political position. And he just went, oh, it's good for you. Next! It was just like the most perfect thing that summarizes the difference between British and Israeli culture. So the reason I wanted to ask is I'm curious, what would you say are some of the videos that for you think seem to resonate the most with the audience? The ones that a sketch or a post you did that really blew up and just kind of really resonated with people?
Well, I think obviously the allow. I've sort of become synonymous with allow at this point. Because I've made so much fun of the experience. The allow security, it's funny. A lot of creators now do that skit. I would argue that I was one of the, if not the first, one of the first to do it. So I think that's why I've become so synonymous. Like that one that you showed was so iconic. At the end, it's funny. I didn't actually translate the Hebrew that I said. I'm obviously interrogating a woman in the video. And at the end, I say, Yoram achi, bobo, ein neshek, aval yesh pitzatzot, which means, Yoram, come, there are no weapons, but there are bombs, i.e. the women are bombs. Like, it's a way of describing a girl as like super hot, like she's a bomb. So and like just asking, because anyone that's ever been to Israel really has had that experience, like you just said with the Baroness or yourself. Like I remember he asked me, what's your rabbi's name, what community you're part of, which holidays you celebrate. What was your bar mitzvah parsha? So I just sort of exaggerated everything. So I said, like, what is the name of the grandmother of your rabbi? Or recite to me your bar mitzvah parsha, but backwards, and things like this. And I think that really resonated. And the pilot one, also super iconic. And it's funny because I haven't even posted videos like that in so long, but it's the one thing people say, oh, you're the El Al guy. You're the El Al guy. So I think they're super iconic. I've made obviously a lot of videos that have actually gone more viral than that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. A lot of the dating ones are funny because I think a lot of my videos appeal to non-Israelis, so Olim or Jewish people that from the US or Europe that go to Israel and interact with Israelis. So I think what's unique about me is being able to speak to non-Israelis to make it authentic from our experience, what it's like to go to the shuk or to get interrogated in the airport or get in a taxi, but also make it authentic enough for Israelis that it also lands. Yeah. And I think that's so all these experiences, and that's how it started. Admittedly, it's developed since then, but that's how it started, really showing the experience of going to Israel either on holiday or as an Ola.
And do you ever worry with your content, because obviously it can be sometimes a bit edgy, do you ever worry about like crossing the line, or am I going to cross the line with this?
Like in what sense?
That it might be offensive, you might, because sometimes the content can be a bit edgy, or it has a political point to it, or is it not really? Sometimes comedians have that at the back of their minds, but others are just like gun-ho, like, no, it's funny.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty safe, I'd say. Like nothing is, I don't really swear or anything like that. I don't make it too political. I've done a couple of things, like early on in the war, I did a video which was to the Eminem song, where they goes, "This looks like a job for me," and I sort of was like protesters, and I looked at like all the conflicts going on in the world, and they were like, nah, and then it was like Israel responds to terror attack, and this looks like a job.
Yeah.
That was pretty viral, and that was pretty edgy. I don't know. I just sort of, I know I'm going to get mostly hate from anti-Semitic people or just haters in general, but it doesn't stop me. Like I do videos with Israeli girls a lot, and they get so many comments, and most of them are about Palestine or about ridiculous things like that aren't even true. But I just sort of I don't even read it. Just let it keep it going. Comment on my videos. It's going to improve the engagement. It's going to get more views. So keep
Yeah,
it coming.
for sure, for sure. And what do you think is one thing that diaspora Jews might not understand about life in Israel until they really, spend time living there?
That's a good question. I think, in a sentence, how beautiful it is, but I don't mean just like how it looks, just the experience of being in Israel. I always describe the difference between Israelis and non-Israelis, let's say Americans or Brits or whatever. We would more tell you to your face politely that you look very nice, but then behind your back say, oh, I didn't like what they were wearing. An Israeli will say to your face, you look terrible, it's not good, but then give you the shirt off their back to
Right.
make you look better. So I think just the directness of being there, and it can be pretty daunting, but actually once you're there and you live through it, it's so refreshing and like honest. I just really like that.
Where do you think it comes from, the Israeli directness?
I don't know. Literally, I think, I actually don't know where it comes from. Maybe thousands of years of persecution. I'm not sure, but it is just so and it's just a thing everyone knows. That's why the videos of me being a nervous British guy on a date with a fiery Israeli woman always performs really well on socials, because we've all felt that experience of talking with an Israeli, particularly as a Brit. Like, we're very polite people. Is very well known. We behave like that. We apologize for everything. We ask permission, and Israelis are the exact opposite. So when you put me with someone like Shaked, who's a good friend of mine, and we do videos together, it's always just such a fun connection.
And what's the funniest thing that's happened to you in Israel that you haven't made into a video yet?
It's funny because anything that happens to me in Israel, I instantly write it down and then I put it in a video. That's literally what I do. I'm always looking, and if I don't put it in a video, I put it in a stand-up bit of some sort of my experience in Israel. Well, okay, one of the things that happened, actually, this has never been in a video, and I haven't even told that many people about this, is obviously there's sirens because of the war. The Houthis are sending rockets, and I've been going to Israel. I was in Israel peak war, like when the rockets were coming from everywhere. There were sirens every day, and I arrived, and I was told, download this app called Sofar, which is the red alert app. And it basically means that in case you were asleep and you didn't hear the sirens, your phone will ring really loudly, and it will alert you that there's a siren and get to a shelter. So it's really important, and just so you don't miss it. So I downloaded the app, and I'm in the taxi because my friend told me to download the app. I'm in the taxi on the way during peak war. Everyone's a bit on edge. And I download this app, and it says, recommend testing the alert to make sure that it works. So I press test alert while I'm in the taxi on the motorway in Israel. And obviously it goes off. The driver thinks a siren is happening, and the car literally swerves, and he stops the car on the motorway, and all the cars are beeping him, and he's like, we got to get out of the car. The protocol is, if you're on the highway, get out the car and lie with your hands on your head.
Oh,
so
no.
he's doing that, and I'm explaining to him in my broken Hebrew, no, it's not. There's no siren. It's my app. At which point he realizes, because he can hear there's no siren. Oh my God, did he scream at me? He screamed at me.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'd be scared for my life.
And
that's much more scary than a siren.
In a taxi, another thing that happened was, this was terrible. Oh my God, I've just reminded this. This was so awkward. I got in a taxi, but naturally, when you sit in the taxi, you won't sit directly behind the driver. You usually sit on the other side so you can sort of see the driver. But just based on the way that he picked me up, because in Israel, they rather than actually pull over and tell you to stop, he's ushering me in the middle of the road, come, get in the car. So I jump in, I'm sitting directly behind the driver, and I just didn't bother moving for the journey. It was 15-minute journey. And then he drops me at my apartment, and obviously I'm stopped in the car. My apartment is on the right side, and usually I get on the right, but I'm sitting behind the driver on the left. So he said Toda, I sort of stopped the car and pressed the receipt. So I opened the car door, and without looking, and I opened the car door, and as I opened it, a guy on a scooter went bang. and the whole door came off the hinges. The whole door came off,
No.
and the guy was on the floor. I felt so bad for the guy. Thank God he was wearing a helmet. He wasn't injured or anything. And I was, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? And the guy was Israeli. He just literally got up and zoomed off, which I realized was because he didn't want to be liable to pay.
Right.
Because I
Right.
think, judging on what happened, I think he was looking at his phone while riding the scooter.
Mm.
So it might arguably have been his fault, obviously my fault for opening the door. Anyway,
Yeah.
I also was berated by, obviously I literally broke his door and I had to pay quite a lot of money to
Oh
fix
my
that.
God. So right now, a lot of your life in Israel is just spent being berated by taxi drivers.
Yeah, I've been berated. Yeah, many taxi drivers have shouted at me.
Oi, oi. And what is something that you still don't understand about Israelis, no matter how long you spend time there?
I still don't understand about Israeli. I think they're like their priorities. Like during a war and a siren, if you're around an Israeli, they're the most chilled ever. I'm like panicking, running. Give it, you have 90 seconds, relax, whatever. But like the smallest inconvenience, like rain. Have you ever been in Israel during the winter?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was there. When was I there? I think in January, and it was pouring with rain.
Yeah.
Whole city shut down. Tel Aviv was shut. No taxis. The Wolt delivery app, like Deliveroo or Uber Eats, offline. Literally offline. You couldn't get anything. People weren't going into work. The internet, it was like crazy. I'm like, guys, you realize that when there's rocket sirens, you're still full steam ahead. But when there's a bit of rain, oh my God. The whole place is down.
That's such a funny observation. That is such a good observation. And it must be a bit of an adjustment coming from London. Okay, another question. If you could collaborate with any Jewish or Israeli figure, dead or alive, because you do collabs from time to time, that you haven't done yet, who would it be and why?
Jewish or Israeli comedian, did you say?
No, any figure.
I mean, Ben Gurion would be pretty cool. I think Sacha Baron Cohen. Sacha Baron Cohen, like as like just a Jew. He's like honestly, as a kid, was my absolute idol. I looked up to him so much. I think he's one of the greatest comedians ever. He's just so groundbreaking and it's just so funny. So to do anything with him would be like bucket list.
Well, I see he sits in front of my family and Shul on Yom Kippur, so maybe we can try and ask him next time we see him. Can't promise we'll get a positive response, but always worth trying. So I also just want to talk a bit more seriously as well about your messaging and the importance of it. Like, would you say that you're trying to push a message with your content? Is it more than just you're here to try and make people laugh as well?
I think that okay, obviously there's two sides because I wouldn't say I'm political. There are some very good political comedians. I try not to be political. When I talk about the war, my focus is mainly about bringing the hostages home. So that's the kind of underlying message of everything, is that we want to get these guys out of there. They've been there for so long that we just need to get them out. And that's been my message since day one. I'm not talking about the government in Israel or so much the conflict. Is more just like the human beings that were taken, innocent human beings that were taken from their homes on October 7th. We need to get them out. That's the kind of underlying message of everything. But in terms of the humor and trying to bring joy, I guess it's just influencing people to connect and to make Jewish people feel together. Because I think everyone is so divided right now more than ever. Everyone's got opinions. And I think when I do, for example, live shows and I see 400, 600, I did one in Mexico that was 1,300 people all together in one place, all with one shared mission of joy for that 1 hour, is so powerful. So that's, it's great to make someone laugh for 30 seconds individually, but as a collective, to make Jewish people generally connect and feel as one, I think that's what I really aim to do.
Absolutely. And did you was it quite a big adjustment going? I don't know what you started with, but my guess is you started with the social media and then went to live shows, or that became more of a thing recently. Has it been quite a big adjustment moving to that, and redesigning your content for more longer form stand-up gigs? Was that quite a big challenge?
Yeah, totally. It's a totally different skill. Making content for social media and
Yeah.
being a stand-up comedian is so different.
What's harder?
And being a stand-up comedian, for sure. I have so much respect for anyone that gets up there and puts himself in the limelight live. Social media,
Yeah.
I can do 1,000 takes,
Right.
and I can
Right.
edit it in a way and add music and zoom ins and sound effects to make it funnier. But and also on social media, you get a lot of inspiration from other creators, and whereas stand-up comedy, you just got to make your own jokes and stand there as one and hold the attention of a room full of people for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, up to an hour. And that's one of the most challenging things in the world. I actually started doing it when I was at uni at Nottingham. I was part of the Stand-Up Comedy Society. So we used to go to these small little pubs in Nottingham, and we'd all have goes doing it. So, I used to enjoy doing that. And then, I did a few weddings, like for my friends' weddings and my sister's weddings, I was asked to host it. And I decided to host it as a comedian per se. Like I would stand and between each speech, I would do 2 to 5 minutes of jokes about the family or about the person that was coming or about the couple. And the 3 times I did that was just such a big reception that I loved it. I was like, wow, this standing on a microphone and making people laugh is something that I absolutely love doing. So when I start doing the content and it's going really well, people naturally ask, when are you coming to my city?
Right.
And it all sort of started with people asking me on Instagram, like, when do you perform? And I hadn't really thought about it. So I can't remember what the first one was, but I really, I decided to basically create a charity comedy night in London in February 2025 for Beit Halochem, who's a charity that look after veterans in Israel, a charity that I'm really passionate about and donated to and worked with before. And I decided, like, we haven't had that in London. Because I went to New York and I saw they do these comedy nights and they're really fun. So let's do it, and I'll host it like I hosted the weddings. And I brought over some comedians that I've worked with. So I went to see a comedian in New York called Olga Neymar, and she's unbelievable, Jewish girl. Brought her over. My friend Shachar from Israel, he's really funny. Brought him over, and I got a couple of British Jewish comedians as well. Put it all together. I sort of hosted it, did 10 minutes at the start, and then between each act came on and then did a sort of an ending as well. And it went down so incredibly well that gave me the confidence to really go and do this. And once I established and said, I am a stand-up comedian as well, then I started getting opportunities to do it. And since then, I've, done Paris, done London, done Mexico, doing Manchester. Got a big show in London next week and Manchester next week, and then South Africa 3 shows, and then Australia 3 shows, and Israel as well. So it's just, it's been amazing. And
That's terrific. You must send me the link to all your shows so we can put it in the video description. And also, I want to check out the London one. Might be able to see if I can potentially make it. I'd love to see you do your acts in person. It'd be amazing. And I'm also curious to know about, I know you said it's not really political what you're doing, but just the nature of talking about Israel or Jewish issues. There are some people who are upset about that. It's not justified, of course, but they are. Like, how much of your comments are hate speech or hate comments? Do they bother you? Do you ever reply to them?
A lot of hate comments. I see. I honestly, I tend not to read them. And I do a whole bit, and I won't tell you the whole bit on this now because I want to encourage you to come to the show. But when I do my stand-up, I do a section talking about hate speech and how I respond to the comments. My rule of thumb is I just don't read them. My notifications on Instagram are set so only people I follow will notify me. So if I follow you and you comment, I'll see it. Whereas if you're a stranger on the internet, I will never see it unless I go looking for it. So I tend not to go looking for it. Sometimes I see videos, performing really well, and I'm like, oh, I got 3,000 comments, wow! And then I realize, I bet I know why. And then I have a quick scroll, and then I see all the flags and the comments and the swastikas. But that my rule of thumb is just generally to not engage. The only time I engage is if I think of a funny reply, and then I post the comment and I post my response to it. For example, one of them, for example, was they said, someone commented, "Where's your foreskin, Jew boy?" Something like that. So then I posted a video in response of me singing the song. You said that you could let it go, you used to know. And then I cut back to me with my hood on that said my foreskin. It said, "But you didn't have to cut me off." And that just random video got like millions of views. So sometimes I do respond, but yeah, I tend not to engage.
That's brilliant. Well, that leads very nicely to my next question was, do you think comedy can actually play a role in combating anti-Semitism or ignorance?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think it empowers people to, to see someone, and I'm saying that from myself as a fan of comedy and seeing other creators do it, to stand up and be proud Jewish and celebrate our culture in the face of anti-Semitism is so empowering. It inspires me, and I hope that when I do it, it inspires others. And sometimes I get such lovely messages and people that say to me, I was just in Israel, and I can't tell you the amount of people that shake my hand and say, "Thank you for what you're doing for the Jewish people and for Israel." And I'm thinking, what am I doing? I'm doing nothing. I'm just sort of having fun and having a laugh. And you don't realize how many people you're actually touching. You get used to seeing 1 million views or whatever, and 100,000 likes. So that's a lot of people. Really is a lot of people. So to do it and get that much engagement for videos about one of the smallest populations in the world, and to really touch that many people is obviously making an impact. And yeah, and I'm proud to do that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. The other reason why it's so powerful is that it's disarming, it's very humanizing, and also it stops us from being on the defensive. In some ways, it's allowing us to be on the offensive in a positive sense. So often it can seem like, because we're dealing with all these false accusations, that we're acting very defensive, whereas the positivity that you bring, and that's one of the things that I tried to push on JTV, which is don't just fight anti-Semitism, create pro-Semitism. Like that's I think the key to all of this. Fight darkness with light. So with that all said, what's next for you? Obviously I'm sure you're going to be doing more stand-up, more sketches, but is that the plan? Do you have anything else that's kind of that you're looking to do and to expand in this area?
I think that what I want to keep doing now is keep growing the profile on bigger stages, more views, more people, more love. Eventually, maybe a special or a TV serial or something. We have a few things we're working on. That would be a really big goal of mine. But for now, in the short term, all I want to do is just keep bringing joy and keep celebrating Jewish culture and being one of the top, if not the number one Jewish comedian in the world would be an unbelievable achievement for me. So that's what I'm focused on.
That sounds very smart, and it seems like you're really achieving incredible progress in that area. I must share with you something I shared with Yechiel Jacobs. You know him, he also does content. Great. So I shared with him, which I'll share with you, something my rabbi shared with me, the brilliant man in based in America, Rabbi Manis Friedman. He said that after the Yom Kippur War, which began, of course, on Yom Kippur, there was a mood that set in Israel, which was very Yom Kippur-esque in nature. That it was very kind of, it didn't look like, it was much more of a close call than at least it seemed to be then, let's say 67. And that was a mood that set in the years after. But he said that October 7th, which happened almost to the day 50 years later, took place on Simchat Torah. And he said, and therefore the response and mood that should, and we are seeing set in, that's embodied by people like you, is a Simchat Torah atmosphere, a Simchat Torah mood and vibe. And that has to be our response and our answer this time, to respond with joy and celebrating our identity from, against those who seek to demoralize us and intimidate us and make us want to hide away our Jewish and Israeli identity. So thank you for really leaning into that and doing all of that. My last question for you is just going back to all the brilliant comedy and sketches that you've done. Can you end by giving us your favorite only in Israel story? You've given us a few already, but I wondered if you might be able to share one more with us.
Only in Israel story. Probably one of my first that comes to mind, my first experience really trying to get Israelis involved in my videos was the taxi driver. The first time I did the taxi driver, no one had ever done this before. And this was on that trip where I went to specifically go and be in Israel and go to the south and see the sights of October 7th and learn and sort of mourn that. It was ironic that on that trip, I probably made my two most iconic videos at the time, which really boosted my profile. I mean, that trip I went from, I think, 8,000 followers to 40,000 followers in one trip from these two real videos. And it reminded me, actually, when I went on Poland trip, I remember my school, Emmanuel College, took us to Poland in 2011. We went to see Auschwitz, Majdanek, Treblinka, and, which was one of, the Warsaw Ghetto, one of the most sad trips we've been on, but I also had the most fun I'd ever had. And I remember talking to one of my teachers about it, and I said, I feel guilty that I'm having all this fun with my friends and we're in Poland. And he said, no, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. That's the point. That's what this is all about, to be able to live when, and we so shouldn't be here. To be able to live and feel joy is an amazing thing. And that's very similar to when I went in December. And one of these experiences was I wanted to do a video in a taxi, and I needed a taxi. I wanted it to be authentic. So I stopped a taxi driver on the street and I said, Slicha, אתה עובד עכשיו? Are you working now? He said, כן. And I said, אתה פנוי? Are you available? כן. And אפשר לשבת? Like, can I sit? And again, מה אתה עושה? עושה לי השוואה? And I was like, well, what's the problem, bro? You have a problem? I was like, no, let me explain. And I sat in the taxi and I said, listen, I just want to explain. My name's Zach and I'm a comedian and I make funny content about life in Israel. And I had this idea that I could be a taxi driver. And I thought perhaps maybe I could drive your taxi and my friend could film me and we could get some funny clips of me and the taxi driver. And it would be really funny. What do you think? And he said, אתה משוגע? You were crazy? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you want to drive in my car. You don't have insurance, you don't have license, you want to make fun of my work? מה אתה עושה? יש מה... בוא לפה, like, לך מפה, לך, תעוף מפה. Like, get out of here. And I said, I'm so sorry, I can pay you. And he said, בסדר, you don't pay me this. And then he gave me the keys to his car. He said, he put the meter on. He said, just drive the car around wherever you want. I'm going to wait here, have a cigarette. Come back when you're done, and whatever the money is on the meter, you pay me. And I did it.
That's brilliant. That's so brilliant. That is absolutely epic. Oh my gosh, that is so brilliant. As I say, anyone that's been to Israel will know exactly what you mean and what you're referring to. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today. As I say, we'll put a link in the video description if you can send that to me for us to follow you and find out about your events. Thank you for all you're doing. And thank you for joining us on JTV. It's really appreciated.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all you're doing, mate. Appreciate it.